and it's happened so many times, and I would just be like, oh, who raised you? Hey guys, my name is Linda and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel, thank you so much for stopping by. Please don't forget to subscribe, and if you're not new to this channel, thank you so much for your support. In this video, I wanted to chat a little bit about my experience while going to university in Canada. As you guys can see, I did my braids. I might as well say it took me 5 days because it's day 5 and I'm not completely done because I've been doing this myself, so it takes a bit of time. So in this video I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experience and just looking back at some of the things that I found really interesting, or just that were very different from my experience growing up and where I came from. So yeah, it's just a list of things that were a bit shocking and a bit, new for me to adjust to. So let's get into the video.
Get away, nigga, get away. I ain't try hear what a nigga say. Headed for the top, I ain't know how to stop till the world go pop. I've been steady watching these fools talking shit like it's a daily news. Beefy niggas got petty moves, better make them lose fatty juice. Nigga, yeah, on a mission, like I'm flying to the moon.
In Vancouver, it's very difficult to like get your hair done, especially if you're like an African woman. There are hair salons, but I think that they're pretty much pricey. For example, I've seen hair adverts where basically it could cost like $150 to get your braids done. And my problem was, when I first came, I used to really like convert all the prices. So every time someone would be like, oh, I'm gonna charge you $150 for you to get your braids done, in my head I would be like, that's 1,500 emalangini for braids. So I really just would be like, no, that's not gonna work for me. And so I had to adjust and basically learn how to braid my own hair, which is basically what I'm doing now. So in Swaziland, like any other African country, there's a lot of hairdressers, so you can basically find a hair salon at every street corner. It's very interesting because there's so many of them, and so it makes it cheap, so you don't really have to like worry about where you're gonna do your hair. In fact, in Swaziland, I think there's so many hairdressers that sometimes it's a bit too much. Like I remember back home, I'd be walking down the street and people would be like, oh, hi sissy, wash and set, which is just like basically translates to, hi, can we wash your hair for you and like set it and make it look nice. So that really happens at home. Like you'll be walking down the street and people would be offering services to style your hair and like do it obviously at a price, but that's just how many hair salons we have. Like there's so many options. I remember I really struggled to adapt to the food here because it had no taste. Like I was like, where's the curriness, maybe the spiciness, something, we're missing something. And so I really struggled, and one of the hardest things was living in residence and eating food in the dining hall. I was forced to, because it was part of, if you lived in residence, you had to pay for the meal plan and eat in the dining hall, and I really didn't like their food. I like their breakfast, and that's as far as I like their breakfast. I like their desserts. I liked like the drinks. They had really nice fountain drinks, but the food I really struggled. And I moved out of residence as soon as I could because I just could not eat the food. And I remember when I first came, I was craving so much of like food that I never thought I would crave, that I used to eat back home. Like I would be texting my mom, oh, I'm craving INCWANCWA. I cannot believe that. I was actually craving INCWANCWA for the longest time because I was just like, I need good food. For those who don't know, INCWANCWA is it's like a sour porridge meal thing that you eat in the morning. It's like a nice breakfast meal. It's really nice, and I literally took it for granted until I came overseas, and I was like, basically this side it's very normal for adults to ask you to refer to them at a first name basis. So I remember being in like lectures and professors, like you can tell this person's a professor, and basically they'll be like, my name is Mike, please call me Mike. And I'm just like, I'm not about to call you Mike, like please can I call you Professor Mike or something. But it's very normal this side, and it's basically part of a culture to refer to adults on a first name basis, which is kind of weird for me, because back home you can't do that. Like you're being disrespectful if you if you refer to an adult or someone who's older than you in using their first name. So it was a really interesting thing to adjust to, calling people by their first names even though they were definitely older than me. In Swaziland, I feel like there's a sense of humanity. Humanity is not the word. Human recognition, human acknowledgement. I feel like in Swaziland, people recognize each other. In fact, in Swaziland, when you, like in Siswati, if you say hi to someone, you say sawubona, which literally translates to I see you, right? Like it's literally part of the culture, it's part of the language. So people in Swaziland, they greet. Like if you're, I'll give you an example. If I'm at a bank and I walk into the reception area and there's like a group of people there, people will walk in, like I would also walk in and be like sanbonan, even if I don't know these people. But it's just a way of, I guess, like that's what you do when you enter into a room, you greet. Canadians Canadians don't greet, my friend. So I really used to find this really rude, like and it's happened so many times, and I would just be like, how, who raised you? You know, like it's a concept that I really struggled with. An example would be, say for example, if I went into, let's say I had a class and then I arrived in that classroom where we're gonna have the class very early, like maybe I arrived like 10 minutes before, so I was the only one in the classroom. And it's very normal for someone to walk in, and when they find you in the room, they're not gonna say hi to you. They're just gonna pick a seat, and you know, they won't even like they won't recognize you. Like for them, they're in their own world. And I used to find that so rude. I used to be like, yo, I'm leaving this country. But yeah, but then after some time, obviously you get used to it because you realize it's disrespectful for sure. Like I'm not gonna dismiss that it's disrespectful, but it's just part of their culture. Like it's the way it is. So this side, you walk into a store, people will be like, hi, how are you? You know, in that very like high-pitched customer service voice. And did you find everything good today? You know, do you need help? Let me know. My name is Susan. Let me know if you need help. Like it's very normal for people to sort of be very polite and show customer service, especially in retail stores. So for me, that was very new when I first came, and I was just like really surprised by it. But I like it. I wish Swazi people could do that a bit more, because Swazi people are nice, but I just mean in like business environments, I think some people don't really like to be professional, which is very interesting. In Eswatini, you pay to use the public toilet or the public washroom, and this side you don't. And for the longest time I thought it was normal to like go into a mall, pay someone so you can go and do your business. But in Vancouver you don't. You just kind of, you know, and you can use the washroom wherever you are. Of course there's some places that may be a bit strict. Like I do know some companies that will not let you use their washroom unless like you're a customer. That's sort of understandable. But like in the malls, like you can use the washroom. Whereas back home, even if you've been shopping all day in the mall, you still have to pay. I think the last time I checked it was 2 MLI. You have to pay to use the washroom. So this side, public transport is very much like organized. There's a system, and it tries to be efficient. And the main difference is that public buses follow time. So for example, if I want to get to town say at 12:30, I'll probably see if there's a bus at 12:15 so I can catch it, and the bus will definitely be there at 12:15, and if you're not there, you're gonna miss the bus. Whereas back home, there's no time schedule, there's no system. Well, there's a system, but it's not really like, it's not very, sorry, that's my roommate. Anyway, so basically there's no schedule. This is very interesting because back home, I'll give an example. If say if you're in a bus, right, and it's just you and just the bus driver will probably not be okay with driving you all the way to town when it's just you only, because you pay for the seat, right? So it's not profitable for them to do that. Therefore, it has happened many times where the bus driver would basically go back like maybe 10 more bus stops back to where he started and try and find more people to fill up the bus so that he can take people to town. Whereas in Vancouver, if the bus is empty, or at least you're the only one in the bus will still take you to where you want to go. So it's not really a, like, because it's already paid for, and this paying system this side is, it's more like a monthly subscription, so you've already paid to use the bus anyways. They don't make money from like each passenger. The next point is about information, and it's kind of related to the idea of Canada being very individualistic in terms of cultures versus Eswatini being very community based. I'll give an example. When I first came, one of the funniest things that happened to me was, I think I was with a friend and I was trying to figure out if the school library was open over the weekend, and I basically asked this person like, oh, do you think the library is open tomorrow or something like that? And they looked at me and they were just like, why don't you just Google it? And I was like, okay, cool, I'll Google it. And so I learned from then that like people are usually like always on their phones and they use Google to search for stuff, and it's not normal for them to like give people information. Like I can't really go to someone and say, oh, do you think the mall is open tomorrow? Like people would rather Google stuff and then maybe ask someone else to like verify it, or if maybe they know that this person works at the mall and so would know. Do you know what I mean? So Google's like the very at the very top in terms of like resources for information, whereas back home I think people do Google, of course, like we do use the internet, but it's very normal to sort of verify information through someone else. I don't know if that makes sense. And so I had to sort of adjust to that and like learn not to like ask people too many questions and just Google it. In Vancouver, of course, nightlife is very like vibrant and lively, and you know, malls close at like 9 p.m. if not 10, depending on which mall you go to. But it's very common for people to go shopping, say till 10 p.m. Like I'll be at the mall and I'm buying clothes at H&M till 10 p.m. or at least till H&M closes. So it's very common, whereas back home a lot of shops close at around 7 p.m. Even 7 is pushing it. I think 6 is when most shops close, or even 5, and 7 would be like the big grocery stores, because they just trying to have extra time for people who come out of work at around 5, and so give them the last 2 hours to do some shopping before they go home. So it's very rare to have like a mall that's open after 6. People go home, unless, and I think if you're out after 6 it's because you're going out to a specific event, but I mean like shopping centers and malls are not open at that time, which I mean sort of makes sense, like, you know, I'm okay with it, whatever. But it was just very interesting coming this side, because I was like, oh, I could literally go buy a pair of jeans at 8:30 p.m. And yeah, that was an interesting observation. That's all I had for the things that I found interesting and quite shocking from a cultural perspective when I first came here. So I hope you guys found this video interesting, and please comment if you can relate to any of the points that I made, and yeah, like what was shocking for you wherever you were, if you are studying abroad, or even any of the things that I mentioned on the video that you thought were like shocking. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching.